Hello everybody. Wanted to do a video to get you started with your Greek lessons even if you hadn't already gotten your textbook. So what we're going to do for the next half hour or so is go over the alphabet and just give you some general familiarity. This is a very important lesson if for no other reason than you're going to be using the alphabet for the rest of your life when you look at Greek, just like you use the alphabet when you look at English. And if you don't learn the alphabet in Greek, you're going to have a very hard time getting anywhere in Greek. So this is a very important lesson. You need to get started as soon as you can, and you need to master the alphabet to where you don't even think about it anymore other than the way you think about the English alphabet. Now, the good news is, as I mentioned previously, is that an awful lot of the Greek alphabet looks or sounds exactly like the English alphabet. In fact, the very fact that you know the alphabet means that you already know two Greek words or two Greek letters, A and B. A in Greek is alpha and B in Greek is beta. So that's one of the places we get alphabet from. So you're already maybe 1/13 of the way there or so. But I do want to emphasize that you will need to learn this. You will need to master this before you can move on to anything else. So one of the ways to do this is to go through this video and watch it as many times as you need to. But work with your textbook. If you have your textbook, you may have some internet resources also. But one of the things I want to emphasize is that you need to do repetition. As I go through this, I'm going to try to say the letters very distinctly, but what I'd like you to do is pause the video at the appropriate place and actually write the letter down yourself. So when we go over alpha, actually as we're talking about it, write the alpha down and at the same time say alpha. So write it and say it, write it and say it. So it's write the A as an alpha, then write, even if it has to be in English, A-L-P-H-A. There's something special about actually seeing, writing, and hearing all at the same time that will help your learning. And when we're writing the alphabet, just like you learn to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you need to actually sit down and write alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, and write the Greek alphabet. So as you do your vocabulary words, I think you probably have flashcards that are provided for you, but it's not a bad idea at all to actually write out the vocabulary word as you say it and use it. So it's repetition, repetition, repetition. While you're in your car, when you're brushing your teeth, you can hum the alphabet to yourself. Whatever you need to do to say it as many times as you need to say it until you become absolutely comfortable with it. Because if you don't become comfortable with the alphabet, you're going to have continual problems in Greek. So your first challenge in learning Greek well is learning the alphabet. Start off today with a slide here that's actually a Greek manuscript from about the 300s. And just to show you what the early scribes did and what the early church looked at. And as we go through the class, we'll come back to this, and you'll find very quickly you will be actually reading from this manuscript. It's not anywhere as difficult as it looks like once you get used to the Greek alphabet and how they wrote the alphabet. You'll be able to read this pretty easily. This is actually a section of the Gospel of John, and as we move through the semester, we will be working with the Gospel of John, the Gospel of Mark, and some other biblical passages. And I think you'll be able to very quickly pull out meaning from the Greek and actually have better understanding of the connotations of the Greek so you can work with the English better and then explain the English to people better. So we'll come back to this manuscript later, but I did just want to give you an idea of what they look like. You'll notice there's no punctuation in this manuscript. You'll notice also that they're all capital letters and no spaces between words. So at the end of this first line, they actually come to an end of the word, but they will not always come to the end of a word at the end of a line. Sometimes the word will actually wrap around from the end of this line to the beginning of this line. So again, like I say, we'll come back to this and you will be actually amazed. When I do this in class over the period of about 4 hours, the students are reading this manuscript by the end of the first class. So you are 4 hours away from being able to read this manuscript. So congratulations, and let's get started not with our ABCs, but with our ABGs. So it's time to learn, just like you had to back, I don't know, whenever you learned. I was a slow learner with language. I think I mentioned that I have no language skills. So I was probably a little bit older than the rest of you when I learned my alphabet. But this is what we're going to do, is learn the alphabet. We'll go through fairly quickly. And what I would recommend is that you go through this video at least twice. Once to learn the letters of the alphabet, and then once to learn the vocabulary words associated with that alphabet. And these vocabulary words, except for a couple of exceptions, I repeated myself there, that won't be on the vocabulary test. Most of these words will be on the first vocabulary test, and as we go through, I will tell you which words will be and will not be on the vocabulary test. So let's get started with our ABGs. This is the alphabet, kind of a little play on words there, but that's actually what it would look like in Greek. And you notice that the A in Greek looks exactly like the A in English. The B in Greek looks exactly like the B in English. Anybody want to guess what that letter is? I give you a clue. It looks exactly like what it does in English, and that's a T. I'm sorry, that's an E. This is a T, and again, it looks exactly like it does in English. It has a different name, but you can notice that you can almost get started with the alphabet just from scratch. So, alphabet starts with an A for alpha. Now this, it's highlighted here in blue, and you'll notice that the Greek A is actually made a little bit differently than the English A, but it's absolutely acceptable if you just use a normal lowercase letter A that you would regularly see anywhere. So I want you to learn the capitals and the lowercase, but as we get started, the lowercase is what I want you to focus on first. So A is just exactly like it is in English. Instead of called A, though, it's called alpha. That's pronounced alpha. And two Greek words that you will be using very, very soon. The first word is adelphos. You see the alpha there. There's a D, looks very much like an English D, an epsilon, a lambda, a phi, an omicron, and a sigma. So that's adelphos. Or maybe if you want to pronounce it differently, adelphos. I always say adelphos because I'm Southern and Greek is Southern, so I like to say it with a Southern accent. But that means brother. Think about Philadelphia. That Adelphi is actually brother. Yes, I'm sorry, I had to think there just for a second. The Phil means love, and Delphi means brother, so it's the city of brotherly love. So Adelphos means brother. Another word you're going to be working with very quickly that it starts with an alpha is agape or agape. Agape means love. You might have heard some sermons spoken on agape love. It's that self-sacrificial love. So these two words will be on the vocabulary test or be optional to be on the vocabulary test. Adelphos and agape. So at this point, sit down, actually write out A alpha, A alpha, A alpha, and write that for a line or two, pause the video, and then come back and we'll go to the next letter. The next letter is beta. It's a B, but it's called beta in Greek. It's made just a little bit differently in that it has this tail down here at the bottom. And the way you actually draw it is you start at the bottom and then you come up, go around, and then go around. So it's all big, one big swoop. Start at the bottom, go up, go around, and go around. It's still a B, but it just has this little tail on it. So beta, B, if you want to write that down as we go, B, beta. A couple of words that should be fairly easy for you to learn coming from a Baptist background or at least a Christian background. First word is baptizo. Now baptizo means I immerse. It's actually a verb. We're going to be learning a little English grammar as we go through here. But baptizo is a verb. It's an action word and it means immerse. And as Christians, we've taken that Greek word that means immerse and we've added theological meaning to it. So from a Christian perspective, to immerse is not just to immerse, but it's to be baptized and it's to identify with the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. But you need to understand that from a secular perspective in the first century, baptizo really just meant to immerse. So when they cooked fried chicken in the first century, they really baptized the fried chicken. They immersed the fried chicken. So we will see that Christianity took a lot of secular words. Evangelion, the good news, evangelism, it was actually a secular word too that Christianity took over and gave it that theological meaning. So I want you to understand the secular meaning of the word, but also the Christian or theological meaning. So baptizo means I baptize. From a secular perspective, it means I immerse. Second word I want you to learn is biblion. Again, notice the beta there, two betas in that one, so you get two for the price of one. Biblion means Bible or book. Biblion. And a lot of people think that Christians were actually the first ones to come up with a book because they were collecting all these letters that were scrolls, and it was kind of hard to carry around 6, 10, 12 scrolls. So what they figured is if they cut those scrolls into pages and then bound one side, it would be easier to collect them and then easier to distribute them. And they came up with a biblion, a book or a Bible. And that's where the world got the name for a book. So 2 words that will be on the quiz is baptizo and biblion. So take just a minute to write down maybe a line of betas, practice writing it, start at the bottom, go up, do one hump, do another, and then you're done. But actually write the letter beta and the word beta several times. And if you want to, you might actually want to say alpha beta, just to kind of get the sequence going. Third letter is one that's similar to English, but also a little bit different. This is what we would normally associate in English with the letter G, or gamma, as it would be in Greek. But in our G, we have a little closed loop, and for some reason, the Greeks didn't do that. So it's a little bit different. You start up here at the top, you go down, you do a loop, and you come back up. And that's a gamma. That's a gamma. So come up, down, around, and back up. It's very similar to what we would do with a regular G. It's just we don't close the loop here on top. So alpha, beta, gamma. Why don't you write down several gammas while I'm talking about it, just to get used to doing that. A couple of words to learn. First word is glossa. This is an omega that we'll learn about later. It's actually the last letter. If you talk about the alpha and the omega. So glossa is gamma, lambda, omicron, sigma, sigma, alpha. Just those are all the letters. But it's glossa, and it means tongue. So when in Acts, when Pentecost happens and people are speaking in tongues, this might be one of the Greek words to refer to that. It can also refer just physically to your tongue, that things that sits in your mouth, and mine gets tied occasionally, and I can't really speak very well, but that's tongue. So the word is glossa. Now, I know I'm giving you some letters you haven't seen yet, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you to watch the video twice. So go through, focus on the first letter here as you learn the alphabet, the gamma, but the second time through, once you've learned the entire alphabet, you can go back and hone in on these vocabulary words, and these 2 words will also be on the test. So glossa means tongue, like physical tongue in your mouth or speaking in tongues. Second word I want you to be learning is graphe, and that means writings or scriptures. So when Paul talks about the scriptures, when the New Testament writers talk about the scriptures, this is the word they're using. So it can mean just physically writing on a paper, but in a religious context, it actually refers to the Old Testament. They would call that the writings or the scriptures. So that's graphe. So the 2 vocabulary words you need to learn are glossa and graphe, and your letter is gamma. And again, it's just like our G, but it's called gamma, and it doesn't have the loop, but it goes down, comes around, and goes back up. So that's gamma. Take some time to write down the gamma again, and if you want to do an alpha, beta, gamma, just to learn the sequence, you can do that too. Fourth letter is another easy one. This is delta, and the perceptive guessers among you will have figured out that that's a D, and it works just exactly like our English D. Several different ways to draw it. I normally start here, come down, around, back up, and make that little tail. So it's very similar to our D, which might be written like that, but it's kind of written backwards. So it's down, around, up, over, and back around. So that would be delta. Greek delta. And 2 words I'd like you to learn will be on the vocabulary test are deca. Notice it starts with a delta, and actually this word you can actually read because it's all in what we would consider English letters. It's delta, epsilon, kappa, alpha, or D-E-K-A, deca. And it means 10, just like decathlon, but the word is deca, as in decathlon, but it means 10. Second word is diakonos. And you've got actually most of these letters too. In English it would be D-I-A-K-O. The Greeks kind of slip us a fast one here. That's actually an N. I don't know why the Greeks write an N like a V, but that's so what they do and we have to get used to it. So D-I-A-K-O-N-O-S, and that's a final S or sigma. It's called diakonos, and this is servant or waiter. It's where we get our term for deacon. So when Paul's talking about diakonos or deacons, this is what he's talking about. We'll spend some time eventually, probably next spring, looking at some passages with that word in it and see what kind of meaning we can pull from the Greek to better understand the English. So the two words you need to learn are deca and diakonos, diakonos. But the letter is delta. The letter is delta. Next letter, you already know too. It's called epsilon. Epsilon is what we would consider E, but it's made just exactly the same. Epsilon is what it's called. So sit down, write some epsilons, maybe go back and write some deltas. Again, the key here is repetition. If you feel like a first grader filling up those wide ruled pages, that's absolutely appropriate, because just like you had to learn the alphabet in the first grade, you're having to learn the alphabet in seminary. I know it seems like you're taking a step back, but think about it that you're learning a very sophisticated language in Greek that will allow you to experience the New Testament. Really will allow you to experience the New Testament as it was originally written. So there's value in this, even if it seems like you're back in the first grade. I promise not to hit your hands with a ruler or anything like that if you misbehave. Actually, since it's online, I can't tell if you misbehave or not. But please bear with me. I'll learn the letters alpha. So it's alpha, beta, gamma, delta. I'm sorry, epsilon. I told you wrong. This is epsilon. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, or E. Two words I'd like you to learn here. These are a little bit longer words. Ecclesia. And that means assembly. Now, we want to call it church. That's where we get the word ecclesiastical from today. But it really means assembly or congregation. So when we talk about the church, we're not talking about the building. We're talking about the assembly of God's people. So the word is ecclesia, ecclesia. But this time through the video, concentrate on that epsilon or E. Now, this is a little bit of a tricky word. You probably got most of the letters here, or you can recognize most of them. This word is euangelion, euangelion, and it means good news, or speaker of good news, or good report, or gospel. This is where we get the word evangelist from, and we'll talk some more about this in class. But it's another one of those that had a secular meaning. So Caesar would actually hire evangelist or euangelionist, if I could kind of mix Greek and English there, to go out and spread the good news if he had a military victory or if he had a child or something like that. So again, the Christians took something that was secular and turned it around and made it into to something theological, to talking about the good news of God instead of the good news of Caesar. So the word is euangelion. Now, if you notice, I'm kind of pronouncing an NG sound there, that ng. I don't know if that comes across on the microphone, but it's an NG sound. And you notice there are two gammas there right in the middle of the word. So I'll remind you of this as we go along as many times as I need to. But anytime you have two gammas together like that, they're not pronounced as G's, they're pronounced as NG's. So that ng, euangelion is the word. So if you see two gammas together, it's not a G sound, it's an NG sound, euangelion. Now this is a good opportunity for me to share with you one of the neat things about Greek or one of the frustrating things about Greek. If it's been a while since you've learned a language, you may have forgotten how frustrating it was. And that there are not necessarily a lot of logical pieces to learning a language. Languages, by and large, don't have logic. Languages have usages. So what we have to do is actually see how people use a language and how they pronounce a language, and then we learn it, even if it doesn't make any sense or not. And I'll give you an example in English. Is everybody think about how to pronounce K-N-O-W. It's not kno, it's just no. So why do we not pronounce that first K? I don't know, we just don't. So languages can be frustrating like that. They have rules that don't always make sense. And this is one of those rules. I don't know why the Greeks decided when two gammas were together to pronounce it as an NG sound, but that's just the way they did. And it was one of their favorite sounds, and we'll see a lot of those double G's that are pronounced with an NG sound. So the letter is epsilon. Write it down and write epsilon down several times. And then the two vocabulary words you need to learn are ecclesia and then euangelion. Ecclesia is assembly or church. Euangelion is the good news or the good report, or maybe just even the gospel. Now, next letter is a little bit different. It's called Zeta, and it's pronounced like a DZ sound, or Z sound, depending. But the letter is Zeta. It's a little bit difficult to write because it is sort of different from any English letter. But I start at the top, come around a little loop, go down, and then go backwards. Went too far. Zeta, so start a little loop at the top, down and around, and then backwards. So I'll give you some slack as we get started as you write this, but I certainly want you to be able to recognize that as a zeta. So that's zeta. Two words, zelotes is this word, zelotes. Again, don't worry about the whole word right now. Pick that up once you learn all the letters. But that is the Greek form of the word zealot, zelotes. So if you were trying to say zealot, one of the early first century Jewish religious groups, you would say zelotes, zelotes. But that z at the beginning is what I want you to pick up right now. So it's zelotes. That letter is zeta. Means zelotes means zealot. Second one is a name again, Zacharias. Zacharias. So we just take the English Zacharias directly from the Greek Zacharias. We've just changed the letters and turned them into English. So two words you need to remember, zelotes and Zacharias. But the letter, and this is the first really, really new one, is Zeta. Okay, the letter is Zeta. So go ahead and write down half a dozen zetas if you want to, or even a dozen zetas, and maybe pick up the rest of the alphabet. Okay, another different one here. This looks an awful lot like an N. I can't argue with that. It looks an awful lot like an N, but it is not an N. Notice that the tail or the end of the letter actually comes down below the line. So this is if you want to think of it in English terms, this is an N with a real long tail here, a real long stem here. But the letter in Greek is Aida. Aida. And it has a long A sound. So in Greek there is no short A, long A, different letters. There are actually two different letters. I don't know if I said that right. In English, we have one letter with two different sounds, short A or long A, or A. In Greek, that's actually two different letters. So this is the long A sound. The only time this is used is when they want to use a long A sound, and the name of the letter is Aida. Aida. So go ahead and write that down several times. Practice getting this stem or tail or line or whatever longer than the other one, because that's the distinctive of Aida. So Aida, long A sound. Two words I want you to be remembering that will be on the test are Elias. Elias. And that means sun. We get the heliographic would refer to a study of the sun or a recording of the sun or something like that. But the Greek word is Elias, that long A, Aida. And it's Southerners, we love to say Elias. So we can kind of stretch out that alpha. But it's, that long A sound. So Aida, Aida, Elias. Second one is Aerodias. So notice that there's an Aida here. It's a long A sound. As we get into accents, there's actually a little bit more going on there. There's an accent at the beginning that turns that long A and actually gives it sort of an H. So it would be Herodias. But for right now, you've got enough to worry about. Just learn the alphabet. That's Aida. Aerodias. Aida. Long A sound. So write those down. You'll need to learn these two vocabulary words too. Next word is another one of those that's different. You may have seen it if you've taken math or something like that. It's a theta. Theta. Excuse me while I check. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure my microphone was still working. I'm going to take just a drink of coffee here, if you would excuse me. All right, now we can continue. I'm properly decaffeinated now. Theta. And it's just a kind of an O or a circle, elongated circle with a line through it. So a circle with a line through it. And it has a TH sound, theta. A couple of words that you need to associate with that are theos. Notice the theta there at the beginning. You've got all the letters now. You can certainly pronounce and learn that one. Theta, Aida, Omicron, Sigma, looks just like in the English. Theos is God. This is where we get theology from. So we take that Thea and add lology to the end. I don't know if I said that exactly right. But theology would be the study of God. So theos is the Greek word for God. Notice the theta there at the beginning. Second one is therapeuo, and that means I heal. Therapeuo, that's where we get therapeutic from, or therapy from. So again, we pick up the Greek and just turn it into an English word. But notice the theta at the beginning. Therapeuo means I heal. So two words you need to learn: theos, God. Might as well go ahead and get that one out of the way. We're going to a Christian school. We got to learn the Greek name for God. We'll see it a lot in the New Testament too. And therapeuo, or I heal. That's just a very good word to learn for theta. So go ahead and write theta down several times. You might want to just do just the sequence there: Zeta, Aida, Theta. They all rhyme. It's another one of the nice things about Greek. As we get into it, you'll see a lot of the words rhyme because the endings are the same. But just go ahead and write down Zeta, Aida, Theta, and actually say the letters as you write it down. Write them down several times. Two words you need to remember: theos and therapeuo, but the letter is theta. Okay, we've had a couple of hard ones, a couple of different ones, and now we're at an iota. And an iota is exactly like an English I, except it doesn't have a dot on the top, so you don't even have to remember that. Just make an English I without the dot on the top, and that is an iota. Iota for the English I. Two words you need to remember with iota are Jesus. Now this is kind of a complicated one. This is obviously where we get Jesus from, but the Greeks were missing a J. They didn't have a J. I'm sorry, they weren't as sophisticated as us. They didn't have the J for John, or some of those things. But so they used an IA sound, and it was a yay. So you have to kind of go Jesus or something like that. So have a little fun with it, but what I want you to remember is iota. So it's iota, Aida, Sigma. Now you notice, again, the Greeks are sneaky. They're the ones that came up with that Trojan horse thing. What they do when a sigma appears in the middle of a word is they write it differently. I don't know why. They just did it. It's too late to fix them. We just have to kind of learn it and get used to it. So if you see, if you see a sigma in the middle of a word, it'll be written just with a circle with a little hat on top. Okay, so that's a sigma at the middle of a word, a sigma at the end of the word. We'll come back to that letter in a minute. But this is Jesus. Okay, so that's Jesus. Another one is Iones. So again, it's that kind of slurring the words together. Io. So it's that I long O sound. Iones. So again, the Greeks had to be Southern because they add extra syllables to everything. It's Iones. So it's kind of like John. So look at the iota. It's exactly the same as the English I. Go ahead and write it down several times. Next letter, again, an easy one, kappa. It's exactly what we would recognize as the English K, kappa. Three words here because they're probably pretty easy. Cosmos just means the universe, the celestial places, the sky, the heavens, something like that. It's where we get cosmology from. So you're probably already familiar with that from an English point of view. But look at the kappa, got the omicron, got an internal sigma again, so you got the little circle with the hat on top of it. This is an M, another omicron, and a sigma. So cosmos, but hone in on the K, kappa. Now, second one, and you'll be seeing this word a lot in the New Testament, so you might as well go ahead and learn it and get used to it. It's kurios, means Lord or Sir. It has a wide range of meaning, so it can refer to someone you're just trying to be polite to. You can call them kurios, or it can refer to Jesus or God. So kurios. So notice the kappa there is what I want you to hone in on to. Kappa. Third word is cardia, and this means heart, so we get cardiac from. So your cardiologist, if you go to your cardiologist, it comes from the Greek cardia, but look at the kappa there, kappa, it's our English K. So I expect to have those words on the vocabulary test too, or at least optional for the vocabulary test. Cosmos, kurios, and cardia. Now, this one is a little bit changed. This is a lambda or an L. So it's similar to the English, but not exactly the same. So instead of, normally we would do an L down and over. They've done it backwards. They've got the vertical stem there, but then they have this little prop holding it up. Again, I don't know why they make their L backwards and propped up instead of flat, but that's just the way they do it. So go ahead and learn this as a lambda. The way I normally write this is I'll make a sort of a slanting long stroke, and then I'll come back and fill in the little leaning part here. So I'll make it this way and then this way. So practice doing that several times. If you want to go up and down, it doesn't matter. Just if you can remember, there's a slanting part here and a slanting part here. So the letter is lambda, lambda. And we have 3 words here too, because they're very important. I'll give you 2 for the vocabulary test, and one's just kind of fun. First one is very important. It's logos. So when John says, in the beginning was the word he's actually talking about here is logos. So it's lambda, omicron, gamma, omicron, final sigma. Logos. But notice the lambda right there. Third word is Lazarus. So you can kind of see that played out in English too. But Lazarus. Lambda starting off, Lazarus means Lazarus. And this is, I just had a little bit of fun. I took lion. So this is what lion would look like in Greek. It's not really a Greek word, but just I wanted to give you another indication of a word that started with lambda. So go ahead and write down lambda several times, and we'll move forward. All right, now we're out to the M. And this looks a lot like our M, except just these top peaks are jammed together. So it starts down below the line, goes up, comes around, and goes back down. All right, now the thing I want you to notice about this is there is a rounded bottom. So just like our M, there's a hump there on the bottom, and the letter starts down below the line. So you would start below the line, you would go up, you would come back, and then you would come back down. So you're kind of making an M, but it starts below the line. And it's maybe, depending on what you want to call it, maybe an upside down M. Whatever it takes to learn it, just remember that's a moo. Like a cow goes moo. So yeah, I know we're back in the 1st grade, I'm sorry. But certainly learn moo. That's the name of the letter, moo. It's the Greek M. A couple of words to learn with that are martyreo. This means witness or martyr. That's somebody who's willing to die as a witness to Christianity. Notice the beginning, mu, martyreo, eyewitness. So eyewitness, martyreo, martyreo means eyewitness. Another one, now this is a name again. Notice it starts with a mu, as Mattathias. You can probably do that just from the English. Mattathias means Matthew. So Mattathias, Matthew. So the letter is mu. Practice writing that several times. Start at the bottom below the line, go up, come back down, go up, and then come back down. But I want to be able to see this tail down here at the bottom, and I want to be able to see this rounded crescent at the bottom. Okay? Don't come to a point, don't come to a flat section. It's rounded. Very, very important. And why it's important is because the next letter is a nu. Now, again, I told you, I don't know why the Greeks decided to make their N look like a V. That's just what they did. I'm sorry. So it's looks exactly like our letter V, but it is the Greek N or nu. Nu. N-U. Nu is how it's pronounced. So it's an N. It looks like that, but it's an N. And 2 words to remember are, here's your nu, Nicodemus. Nicodemus, another name, Nicodemus. And the other one, I just like this one because it's kind of fun. We see it certainly a lot in the Bible, but it's Nikao. Nikao starts with that nu, and it means I conquer. And the reason you ought to be familiar with that, and I can guarantee you these 2 will be on the vocabulary test, is Nikao is where we get Nike from. If you've ever worn Nike shoes or heard about Nike shoes, they mean I conquer. So that's where they get the word from. Nikao and Nicodemus. Okay. Xi is a real strange one. I always think about it, it's the snake letter. Okay, it's kind of pronounced as our Z, but it's a loop, and then a big kind of S sort of thing. It's real fun to write. You can't write it real quick because it looks kind of strange, but I want you to recognize this. Don't see it a lot. It's not one of the more common Greek letters, but you will see it. It's certainly an important letter. And I play a little game here. I'm calling this zebra. but that's the xi sound. Or xylophone. Okay, just took two English words and transliterated them into Greek. Those are not Greek words. You won't see them on the vocabulary test. There weren't any common words that start with that letter, so I didn't want to get you worked up about them. But just be able to recognize that as a xi, pronounced kind of with a Z sound. Okay, won't spend a lot of time on that. We'll go ahead. Next one, you already know, omicron. Omicron or an O in English. And the two words here are ophthalmos, which is where you get I from. You go to the ophthalmologist. You have ophthalmic, that's not a word. Salve, you have eye salve, so it would be salve for the ophthalmy. I don't know what it would be. Anyhow, maybe I need some more coffee here. Excuse me. See, yeah, I knew it would work. Ophthalmic salve. So basic root, ophthalmos means eye in Greek. Ophthalmos, the omicron. Second word, octo, just means 8. So we have an octagon. That's where we get it. Octo means 8. So those words will be on the vocabulary test. Everything we've done so far except the zebra and the xylophone will be on the vocabulary test. All right, omicron. Practice writing that down several times. Pi. And if you've ever had any math, you know this, pi r square, right? Formula would have something to do with the circle. I always had lots of trouble with that in grammar school because I wanted to say, no, pi r square, cornbread r square. And they'd make me sit in the back of the room, and it was a miserable day. But the Greek word or the Greek letter is pi. So it's a horizontal top and then two kind of tails coming down. So there's a lot of freedom in that. If you get the top and the two things sticking down from the bottom, that's going to go. The letter is pi. We pronounce it with a P. Two words, two names in this case, Paulos. See the pi there? Paulos or Paul, and Petros or Peter. But hone in on the pi. Both those words will be on the vocabulary test. Oh my, what have I done? Okay, thank you. Paulos or Petros. Must be getting time for a break. We're almost done. Stick with me, guys, and I'll try to get through this as quick as I can. Pi, or Paulos, or Petros. Now, the next one is the Greek letter rho. It looks like a P. It's not a P. It's an R sound, rho. But it's made just exactly like a P. Start down here, come up to the top, and circle around. So start at the bottom, go up to the top, and circle around. It's an R sound. And the two words associated with rho are rabbi, which means rabbi, just exactly like in English, or Rebecca. Okay, we see that in the New Testament. But notice that's an R. It looks like a P. It's going to take you a little while to get used to it, but that is an R, not a P. That is a rho. So think rho. Go ahead and write it down a number of times and say rho each time you write it down. And over the course of a day or two, or maybe a week or so, you will get used to it. When I first started learning Greek, I got real dyslexic because I was learning Greek and I was writing letters, and all of a sudden I couldn't remember how to write Greek letters or English letters, how to make a D, which way the L slanted. So it's not unusual when you learn something like that to go through a period of confusion. But stick with it. It will become more clear. And sometimes you just have to do things a certain number of times to kind of hammer it into your brain. The smart ones, you won't have to do it so many times. I was not a smart with languages. I had to write rho a whole bunch of times. So if you pick up a little bitterness about the rho there, maybe that's one of the letters that was harder for me to master. But it's a rho. It's an R sound. Either rabbi or Rebecca would be the two words, and they will be on the quiz. Next word, a letter, is sigma. We've seen this a lot, and again, it's two different ways, sigma or S. This looks a lot like our English sigma, although this part here is actually below the line. So if we were going to write it, it's kind of like, it's kind of like a C, but then below the line they've got a little tail curving back. So this part is above the line, this part would be below the line. That's a final sigma. They only use this when it was the last letter in the word. If you find a sigma in the middle of a word, it's this circle with a little top hat on it, or however you want to look at it. So either one of those could be a sigma. It's the S sound. Two words to remember, Sabbaton. Notice the sigma there, and that's Sabbath. That's how they would say Sabbath in Greek. Sabbaton is Sabbath in Greek. The other one is sozo. And this is an incredibly important word. It means I save. You can imagine how many times that's going to show up in the New Testament. But notice it's got the sigma, the omega, this zeta, and then another omega. So sozo. And in that case, there is a DZ sound here. Sozo. Sozo. I save. So it's a sigma. You can see it two different ways. In the middle of the word, the end of the word, it's sabbaton or sozo. Those words will both be on the vocabulary test. Tau, exactly like our T, but they pronounce it tau. Two words for that are trace. If you know Spanish, you already know what that means. It means three. Trace or talitha. And this is a lady's name or a girl's name, maybe, depending on where you're reading in the New Testament. But talitha, the tau. So that's a tau. Go ahead and write those down several times. Next one, Epsilon. Looks exactly like what it is. It's our U. Epsilon. It's called Epsilon. You see it in a lot of words, but the two we're going to learn. First one is huios. Now again, this has a little accent with an H sound at the front, but right now just get huios. And I'm sorry, I'm a spiritual midget here, but I watched the Beverly Hillbillies growing up, and the main character on there, Buddy Epson, would always go, "Whee doggies." So I am incapable of looking at this word without saying huios. Now that's real funny, and it's a little embarrassing, but I'll just be transparent with you. But what you'll learn as you go through struggling with this vocabulary is you'll get little tricks to learn words that are hard to learn or that you need a little bit of help with, and those tricks are fine to use. If it helps you to look at this word and go, huios, and you can remember that means sun, I'm in total support of it, okay? I went to seminary with someone who learned Greek by singing it. Actually, it would aggravate me all to pieces because we'd be in the middle of a long test, and all of a sudden he'd be sitting at his desk going, na 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 na, and then he'd write down the answer. And I'd try to hum the same thing, and I wouldn't get the answer. But so he learned it by singing little tunes to go along with it. Whatever you have to do to learn the language, my advice is learn the language. If a motion associated with the word helps you to learn a language, then use the motion associated with the word. As we go through the vocabulary, there's several words that I have certain motions associated with. So when I say that word, I automatically make the motion. So whatever helps you, do that. Okay, now I'm sorry I got out of track here. So Epsilon, huios means sun. So Jesus is the huios of theos. So he's the Son of God. I'm sorry, the huios of theos, the Son of God. Another one, hypocrites. This means hypocrite. And again, we've just picked up the Greek word. And there is that little H accent, hypocrites. So huios, hypocrites. But that epsilon is the U that I want you to hone in on. Phi. This is a PH sound. PH sound. Letter is phi, so you make it a circle, come up and down, and then go back through it. So you make a circle, come up and down, and go back through it. Make a circle, come up, and then go back down through it. Two very important words are photos. So photos, Greek word for light, where we get photography from. Photos. The other one is phileo. So that's brotherly love, or I love, phileo. So if you match phileo with adelphos, you get the city of brotherly love, or Philadelphia. So phi, write down that phi several times, that's a new letter. Phi, photos, or phileo. Those words will be on the vocabulary test. Another new one a little bit, this is a chi. It looks like an X, but it's a chi. It's a hard CH sound, chi, maybe a K sound, something like that. So chi, go ahead and write that down several times. Just make it like an X, but it's called chi. And several words here, Christos. It's where we get Christ from. It almost looks like Christos. Christos, for Christ or Messiah. Other Greek words are character. It sounded kind of strange, but that's where you get character from in English. Character. Or charisma, where you talk about people being charismatic. Charisma is a gift from God in a Christian sense or a theological sense. So when we talk about charismatics, those are ones who have been given a gift from God. When Paul is talking about the spiritual gifts in Corinthians, this is the word he's looking at. So the letter is chi. Chi, go ahead and write that down and say chi, maybe even write chi down several times. The three words that will be on the vocabulary test, or optional to be on the vocabulary test, are Christos for Christ, character for character, or charisma for gift. Now, this is a tricky one. This is psi. And I kind of exaggerate it just for fun, but it's a PS sound. So it's like to make a U and then draw a line straight through the U. So make a U and then draw a line through the U. Make a U and then draw a line through it. It's a PS sound, and it's where we get the PS sound in English, like pseudo. So the words here, these won't be on the test. I'm just giving them to you so you can see it. But when 1 John talks about pseudo-Christ or false Christ, this is the word. See the psi there, pseudo-Christos, or pseudo-martyreo, false witness. So just pick up on that psi. You'll see it in the Greek Bible. It's not necessarily all that common, but the closest English word you can associate with it is pseudo. So it's psi, the U with the bar going through it, and you see it in two words there: pseudo-Christos, pseudo-martyreo. And actually, I won't ask you either of those on the vocabulary test, but it's really close to the English. You ought to be able to pick it up anyhow. But it's psi. Last letter, finally we got there. Last letter is omega. So when we talk about Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, one of the reasons they do that is because Alpha is the first letter, Omega is the last letter. So Jesus is the beginning and the end. The Omega is a long O sound. Just like the Aida right here was a long A sound, the Omega is a long O sound. So it's Omega. So two words to remember: Hosanna. There's that funny little H sounding accent again. Ho, notice the sigma, middle S or internal S, alpha, new alpha. Hosanna means God save us. Hosanna. And another one is hora. Hora means hour. It's where we get hour from. Notice again the little H sound. So the letter is omega. The words are Hosanna and hora. Now, again, I would recommend writing this down a number of times and then maybe going back and looking through it and the second time and writing down the vocabulary words. So most of these words, unless I specifically said that they would not be on the quiz, the pseudo-Christos, pseudo-martyreo, xylophone and zebra or something like that. Those words won't be on it, but the others will be possibly on the vocabulary test. I'll probably give you 20-25 words. And I do that for a couple of reasons. One is just to give you an incentive to learn the words, because I'm a devious professor. I have to do stuff like that. But the other is the more words I give you, the fewer points each word counts. I could give you a vocabulary test with only 5 words, but then each word would count 20 points. And if you missed one word, the best you could do on the test was an 80. So on one level, it's to your advantage to have more words. I know that it's a bigger, longer test, but hopefully I can go a little bit easier on you on the grading. So go back through, pick up the vocabulary words. I'd make up some flashcards. Take a 3x5 card, cut it into 3 parts, write the Greek word on one side, write the English word on the other, and go ahead and get started learning these words. I would actually write the words out too as part of the learning process. Now that's going to help you learn the words, but it's also going to help you learn the Greek letters. So right now you just need to be writing, reading, singing, saying a whole lot of Greek letters. So actually as you write, it would not be a bad idea at all as you write your vocabulary words out to pronounce each letter in the Greek. I know it's kind of a basic sort of thing, but you've got to get this down to move forward in Greek. If you don't get the alphabet, you're always going to be struggling. So any time spent now is going to repay massive dividends in the future. If you can just get this alphabet down, you're going to be in good shape for the rest of the class. So I hope this video was helpful. If you need to ask me any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email. Email is on the syllabus in various places around. I will do my best to respond to them as quickly as possible. And depending on how many people are in the class and how things go, we may set up some video office hours. So I will be available at my computer for Skype or Facebook or something like that for an hour or so once or twice a week. Because I know sometimes just reading or seeing, you can get confused, and you just need to ask somebody a short question, simple question, but you do need to ask the question. So we'll see if we can set that up. So any questions, give me an email, and good luck. I'll be praying for you.